play required, but listeners' discretion is advised. Sit back, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe or follow. Now, let's not keep you waiting. It's time to welcome your hosts of TNT Podcast, Tara and Tina.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is TNT Podcast with your hosts, Tina and myself, Tara. And you can follow us on Instagram at TNT Podcast Show and on Twitter at T_N_T Podcast. It's the best thing to do with us in this show is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can catch us there anytime. So this is episode 13. I am so excited about this show. I know you are as well, Tina.
Yes.
This show is going to focus on going through life and all of a sudden a life-altering experience happens and your whole world is completely thrown upside down. And how do you navigate through that? How do you get through that? And we're so honored to have this special guest on with us tonight. She is somebody that's definitely was thrown into that experience. And, like we have a choice. We can move forward and get to the other side, and it's a process. But she's definitely a survivor. Her name is Kristine Carlson, and she is a New York Times bestselling author. She's probably best known for her work with her late husband, Richard Carlson, and his series of books, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Now, when you often, you mention that to somebody or even the statement, don't sweat the small stuff, everybody knows what that is. Everybody's heard of that before. She's got her own podcast as well. And the series of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff has actually sold, I think, over 25 million copies. Right. Just incredible.
It is incredible.
Yes. And last year, the Lifetime Network actually produced a movie about Kristine's story that Heather Locklear, the beautiful, talented Heather Locklear, portrayed Kristine and told her story. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, the Kristine Carlson Story. And we've watched it. I encourage everybody to watch it. It's an incredible story. Yes. So without any further ado, let's introduce our very special guest, Kristine Carlson.
Hi, it's so good to be here with you, ladies.
Thank you so much for being here. We are so honored that you are here with us today. Absolutely.
It's wonderful. I love what you're doing here. I love the intro. It's so energizing. I'm like, whoa, that is so cool.
Get your attention.
Yeah. Buckle up. Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. I think with being drag racers and then also talking about real life topics, we kind of wanted to throw a little bit of that edge in there as well.
Yeah.
So it took us some time, but we were really happy with it. So thank you. And the graphics too, because I know your history, we're in graphic design too, and I thought, I wonder what she'd think of our album.
I love it. I love the energy of it and everything.
I think maybe we'll start with just talking about initially how you came about to become an author and just the work that you do now. How did that come about, and your work with Richard? And maybe we can talk a little bit about Richard as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best place to start is just to talk a little bit about how Richard and I met and sort of the nature of the history that we had. We met in college, and when we met, it was really love right away. I mean, it was we both just felt super at home with each other from the very beginning. And our, success story with Don't Sweat the Small Stuff is kind of your typical overnight success story because it took 10 years. It took 10 books and 10 years. So, prior to that, before we had children, Richard and I were doing different careers, actually. Richard was a bodywork therapist, a rolfer, getting his master's and PhD in psychology. And I had a graphic design business. And so we were, going about our lives, building our lives. And then we started our family. And Richard immediately, I think he always knew he wanted to write. So hence the master's and PhD in psychology. And he just started, he started to write. And it took 10 books. He wrote a bunch of books, which is really the pre-knowledge of the don't sweat the small stuff philosophy. He wrote a book called You Can Be Happy No Matter What, and You Can Feel Good Again, and Shortcut Through Therapy, Stop Thinking, Start Living. And all of these books, they were talking about these principles of happiness. And he was kind of really a pioneer in the field of psychology, sort of bringing this idea that you don't have to dig up your past in order to heal necessarily, that he already knew that happiness was a choice. A lot of the research, the happiness research now, really proves that he was right on track, very intuitively, following, what he really felt in his heart were the principles of happiness, which is really understanding thoughts, moods, feelings, separate realities, and present moment living. We talk about those things today, but 25, 30 years ago, it was all new. Yeah. Like you talked about to an audience, and you should see their faces. The faces just went, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's thoughts?
Yeah. Yes.
So my career started after Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and Richard asked me to write with him in the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love. And so I did that, but really Richard wrote the book, honestly. Like I contributed chapters to that book, and I got my penmanship going. You know what I mean? Like he sort of taught me how to do it. We talked about the book. We created the book together. It was a wonderful relationship workshop for us,
Yes.
And in fact, we really hope that, and we love when we hear, or I love when we hear how people use that book today, because we had hoped that people would use it the way we did. And that was read a chapter, read it together as a couple, and then use the example in the chapter as a generic example. Don't personalize it, but talk about it. Talk about the issue that's in the chapter. And this way we felt that it would be great for couples to be able to communicate about things that probably really do bother them, but are difficult conversations to have. Right. And so anyways, after that, and we went on tour for that book, Richard asked me to write Don't Sweat the Small Stuff for Women because our publisher asked him. And I really was scared to do that. I felt very reticent. I didn't feel confident to do that. I never dreamed of writing a book. I just was like, wow, do I have to do this? And he basically said, well, no, you don't have to, but if you don't, then another woman will.
Good one. Good one.
And so I was like, okay, like, all right, well, I thought about it, and he was there to help me and coach me through it. And I was like an otter taking to water. Once I got into it, I was like, wow, I can do this. I'm a writer. And I think, I could always write. I always knew that. I mean, right. I was a strong writer in high school and college, and I was a great business letter writer, and, I could write proposals and, all of that. So, but writing a book was really different. And so I did that book. I wrote it in 6 months, and then it came time to promote it. And that was the scariest thing, because I was going to step up on the national platform, and I was terrified.
Yes.
So much so that I lost my voice.
I remember that in the movie.
Yeah, right before.
We'll talk about the movie, but I do remember that you lost your voice.
Yeah, and that's a true story. So anyways, that's how I started my writing career. And then I sort of put it all away after I wrote that book. And right before Richard died, I was feeling this sort of emptiness, sort of this sense of, what am I going to do? My kids are growing up. I felt like there was more for me career-wise, but I felt like I had written everything I could write, and Don't Sweat the Small Stuff for Women. And so bam, Richard suddenly just gets on an airplane and on the descent of that flight has a pulmonary embolism, and he died. And he was 45 years young, and I was 43. And it was so unexpected. We had two daughters in high school. One was just a freshman in high school. The other was a senior. And it was just a terrible, terrible shock and horrible, and to lose the greatest father and the love of my life. It really was very, very traumatic and difficult.
And, to be honest, before I saw the movie or even had learned that that's how Richard passed away, I hadn't heard of that before. Did you find yourself searching for answers? What is this? Is this common? Like, is it common that can happen?
Well, it is actually. So a pulmonary embolism, it happens because of a condition in the body, and typically, but you can have one. Like, I just heard of a woman who was totally healthy, didn't have deep vein thrombosis, and she had a pulmonary embolism in her sleep. So you can have them for no apparent reason. And he was suffering from some really severe back pain and was getting a lot of cortisone shots, and and he was more sedentary than he used to be, like, because he was in so much pain. So he was swimming, but I do believe he started clotting. He developed deep vein thrombosis, which is the preceder of most pulmonary embolisms. And most people get it in hospital beds, or if they're in a tight space for a long time without moving. He wasn't like that, but I think just his body responded that way to the level of inactivity, since he was so used to being so active. But yeah, that's what that is. An embolism is, and when you have it on a flight, on a descent of a flight, if the clot releases, and it's lethal because it travels up into your lung and then it explodes. So it damages the heart completely, takes you out,
So it's instant. Yeah.
It's instant death.
Okay. I hadn't heard actually of that prior to learning about
they
Richard.
They happen to people. Like, there's a number of them every year on planes and stuff. So
is that right?
I
had no idea.
On a long flight, even 3 or 4 or 5 hour flight, get up and walk around. It's good for your circulation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and just a total shock. Like, I know, for those who haven't seen the movie, and I know we watched it, I do encourage everybody to watch it. The intro is quite raw.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
I
you just kind of
Heather on that, and that was pretty much, she nailed it. I joked with her because I felt really bad because I only had to do that once and she had to do it 37 times.
Right.
Jeez.
It was really brutal. I mean, she was really dreading that scene too.
But it just, it was just so raw. And I think I kind of froze until, and please tell me that somebody did come up to you in the parking lot.
No, it was one of the most seriously sad things. I think that the people that were around were just so, they just didn't know what to do. And I was just so out of my head.
Yeah.
And I think it was, they just didn't know what was going on. They had no idea. So, nobody came up to me. I basically I wouldn't have even known what to say to somebody, or even, I do remember people walking by and kind of the woman with the child, sheltering the child. I remember that very distinctly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. What do you think inspired Richard to write the first book?
Well, he was a psychologist, and he had been writing about happiness. And so he was looking for a way to reach the masses with his message and how to live happily. And yeah, he was this 10th book. So he was pretty inspired to reach the masses.
Yeah, he sure did.
He was pretty inspired. He was okay. He's like, he was a very successful guy. He was like a nationally ranked tennis star. And I mean, in college. So he was he knew he was here to do kind of big things. I think I always knew it too, and I think
Right.
he knew it. He was very humble though, a very humble man,
Yes.
but yeah, I think he just decided a short chapter book was going to be the answer for the times.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of the technology boom. You know, it was
Something
just like,
short, something that
yeah,
would
something
stick,
short and
something.
digestible, small
Yeah.
bite-sized
Yeah.
chapters.
It makes it easier to read and keeps everyone's attention when they're small chapters. I've noticed
Yeah.
that. I'm reading the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love right now.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it would stick, I think, a little. And even his quotes, some of them are very short and sweet, and they just, resonate with you. And I mean, did you guys ever envision that the impact that this series would have
Oh
on
man,
the
I don't think
world?
I don't think you can really dream that up, like honestly, I think I don't think you can really dream that up. And it's kind of weird, because as an author, you maintain your anonymity, which is really nice in a lot of ways. But it's a crazy thing. Like I've been all over the world on tours and stuff, and it's just kind of crazy. You go to any country and it's a popular series in all countries. So it's really a nutty thing.
Yeah, well, and even
Right.
did you even envision it being a series after the first
No,
book? I mean,
'cause
that too.
yeah, he was like one of the early. We were kind of along with Chicken Soup for the Soul, but he was kind of one of the early branded authors that branded a series. For a long time, the series was more popular than he was. Like his name was secondary, and then upon his death, he was very popular. People knew his name, they knew his work. They would have he would have done very well in this era, like this time period.
Yes.
But I don't think he would have liked it much, to be honest. Like he was very kind of a shy, more introverted person. He would have hated like social media and all that. Like he would have been like,
Right.
He would not want to bear it all on social media. Yeah. So I think it
Yeah.
was, it was the right time for him.
And I know the series has impacted so many people and made changes in their lives. Personally, can you share what it's done for you?
Well, because I've lived this philosophy, I just feel like the philosophy in and of itself is the way to happiness, because what it teaches you is about your own internal psychology and well-being, and how to manage your mind and how to practice life. Once we realize that everything is a practice, and if you want to make changes in your life, man, you got to make changes in your habits. You have to change the way you do things, and you have to live the way you want to. If you want a happy life, you have to live to that, and so almost like subscribe to it. It requires you to be a responsive person versus reactive. It requires you to be a kind person versus an angry person. It requires you to have self-compassion and compassion for others, and be grateful. Look for the grateful things in life, the gratitude in life, versus what you want or this longing for more. There's some really deep principles that you really must practice, and when you do, it's not foolproof. Like it won't change the fact that you're going to go through grief. Like it doesn't change the facts that bad things are still going to happen, and you're still going to have to deal with life. But there's a resilience that happens for people who practice this kind of living. You can only return to as much happiness as you have internally before you go through loss. And we all have like a happiness set point, but they've determined now, the scientists have determined now, that you're kind of born with this happiness set point, but it's not totally set, because it can be nurtured into a higher state. So the kinds of things I'm talking about, the way to practice life in this way, helps you nurture your happiness set point. It helps your happiness grow, your joy grow.
Okay, yes. I've noticed too, with a lot of your work and what Richard had done, it's very much in the present.
Yeah.
It's very much now, not future, not thinking about the past. Do it now.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I've never been one to have much of a 5-year plan, like it's like when your life has its own plans. And sometimes I think we limit ourselves by over planning our future, and that doesn't mean you don't plan for a trip, or you don't plan for your summer vacation, or you don't get your flight 30 days in advance, or, you know what I mean? It's not that stuff. It's just that it's good to have goals, daily goals. It's good to have aspirations. I love to create things. So I work in projects. And certainly I have to plan for projects and so forth. But there's also a real beauty in just allowing life to unfold and to be present, and to be available and flexible when things don't work out. Like things don't always work out. And sometimes you have to pivot. Like, let's say with COVID, we all had to pivot during COVID.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, life wasn't working out for any of us during COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could see like the people that are more happy people generally, they did an easier pivot during COVID than people like for me.
True.
I thought COVID was great. I mean, it wasn't great for my business because my speaking engagements got canceled. I had retreats planned. I had to reschedule and refund. But then once I really thought about it, I'm like, this is kind of cool. I mean, I don't have to go anywhere.
Exactly.
More
quiet.
Yeah, quiet and settling
more
into
peaceful
life.
And exactly.
Yeah, I felt myself feeling a lot of joy. Of course, I thought about my daughter Jazz, who has 5 kids, and I really felt bad because I was like, my kids are grown. I don't have kids at home anymore. So I thought if I had kids at home, this would be brutal.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Brutal.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the not going to school every day thing, though. And I have kids at home. So there were still good things with kids at home. But
so I thought too that maybe I'd show just the intro clip for the movie.
Oh, sure.
Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Your story of Kristine Carlson. I do encourage everybody to watch it. I think I'm not sure if it was Prime that I saw it on, but it's searchable.
It might have been Prime, unless
I watched it on Prime.
Was it? Okay, so it's totally searchable, and
yes.
And if you have Lifetime or cable, then you can find it on Lifetime. It's always on in their library now.
Right.
How long has the movie been out?
Since October, for about 9 months. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's great. Okay,
it's a good movie.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun working with Heather, and we spawned a really close friendship, which was really sweet.
Awesome.
We still see each other. I'll go fly to LA and go see her at her house, and and she's coming out this next fall, and we're going to go to my place at Sea Ranch, and she's a sweetheart.
Awesome.
It was really fun.
How did the movie even come about, and even having Heather play the role? I mean, which was perfect. She's a perfect.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Heartbroken Open. And because of our brand, because of the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff brand, they wanted to do something. And then they decided to take that book and bring it to life because of the times that we're in, because there's so much grief and so much loss happening. And they just thought it was a really powerful story. So they took my book, basically, and they changed a lot of the timeline, to make it a movie, but the story's true, and there's a lot of just major true elements in the story, and they did a good job.
Yeah, it's really, really well done, and honestly, she was perfect for the role.
She did a great job.
Really, yeah. So I'm just going to show the trailer for the movie.
Now his books are flying off the shelves, which sometimes happens when an author dies.
Sometimes it feels like Dad's death hasn't affected you at all.
All the things that Richard and I lived by: seek first to understand, make peace with imperfection.
Maybe there's a lesson in all of this.
We'll get through this, because the Carlson women are strong.
Don't
Sweat the Small Stuff premieres Saturday, October 16th, only on Lifetime.
I just get goosebumps when I see that. I think to the music, right, that they put along with it. And yeah, it's an excellent movie. Excellent
really
movie.
is. They did a great job.
Yeah,
Thank
amazing job.
So what about the characters that played your daughters, or the actors that played your
Yeah,
daughters?
I actually have a picture of you with the cast.
Yeah, I was there. I was on set. Oh, we had a premiere. That's what that was our movie premiere. We got to do our own private premiere, and they all came out for it. It was in Orinda, California, at a theater. Yeah, it was super fun. So they all came out for the premiere.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So you've written yourself. You've got 2 books since the series.
I've written 7 books total.
Have you? Oh, 7 total?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 7
Wow.
books total. So yeah, I've written Don't Split the Small Stuff for Women, Don't Split the Small Stuff for Moms, Don't Split the Small Stuff in Love, An Hour to Live, An Hour to Love, which is a letter Richard wrote me, and I wrote my response, and I published that.
I actually have a small clip of that when he gives you that. And that's one of those moments where, obviously in his mind, he didn't realize what was going to happen, but there's all these little pieces and tidbits that are said along the way, almost preparing.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you said that 1 hour to love or to live, I just remembered that that's crazy that.
Yeah, and then I've written Heartbroken Open, and then From Heartbreak to Wholeness, The Hero's Journey to Joy, and then my What Now kind of course and program is a really substantial workbook in it.
Oh, amazing. And you've got your own podcast.
I do.
As well.
I do.
I wanted to ask you if there's any advice for people that are in that grief, in that awful space, and to try to find the gratitude and the positives to get out of that. Is there anything, any advice you could give for people to try to work their way forward? Because when you're in that, I think it's so hard to think there.
I mean, I don't like to, I mean, it's hard to feel grateful when you're in grief. Like that's a tough thing. But I think if you can be grateful or remind yourself of some of the blessings of your life, it's very helpful. But mostly I think what you have to do is just really ramp up your self-care and grief. You have to give yourself time and space to heal. Our culture teaches us to busy our way through grief. And no, I mean, all you're doing is putting grief off till another day. Grief lasts a very long time when you don't acknowledge it, and it creates havoc in your body, and it's not healthy. What's healthy is to actually give yourself time and space to grieve and to heal and take care of yourself, really impeccable self-care, not drinking alcohol or using any kind of crutches is really, I mean, it's paramount to healing in a really positive way. I think it's you're facing one of the toughest times in your life when you're going through loss.
Absolutely.
It is the hardest thing we do. So there's nothing. I mean, I think even going through illness is very, very hard, but to lose the people we love is the hardest thing we go through in life.
Yeah.
So you have to take really good care of yourself.
You do. I mean, I'm terrified of grief.
Nobody
likes it, but I really.
You shouldn't be terrified of it. It's a heal. Think of like you're terrified of loss.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we are all terrified of. But grieving is actually a healing.
Right.
It comes to heal you. It's a wave of I call it the great house cleaner and healer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're experiencing and going through that, it's so hard to think of making it to the other side, until you get until you get there. And I'm, I had gone through something, and I'm thankful I got to the other side. I could have, we all have a choice,
Right.
how to get through it. But looking back now, I definitely don't want to go through the grief part again.
No, I don't either.
But without that grief and experience, yeah, no, I know. But without it, I wouldn't have been doing a lot of the things I'm doing now and experiencing the things I'm doing now. And, so grateful for all these experiences and opportunities that come up. So
it's hard to become.
It's a process.
It is like you become who you are. You're a product of all of the things that happen to you, and the good things, the ugly things, the bad things. But it really is our ability to step into our circumstances daily that shapes us, and that's that's what resilience is. Resilience isn't like, all it means is that you're more buoyant. You're able to buoy yourself to the next moment, and I think you have to think of it like that really getting up out of bed is really courageous when you're grieving.
Absolutely.
And small things are courageous. So, you
making
have
it through
really,
1 hour, and then
1 hour.
you got 1 hour more, you did it. And I know it seems small to some, but it can be a really big deal, when you're going through it.
Sure.
100%. And I have a clip of Richard speaking some wisdom. And I noticed too, you two are very much alike. You're very soft-spoken, very positive, happy, upbeat. So I could totally see like the connection. And do you feel his connection now?
Oh yeah.
With your writing and the work that you're doing? Yeah.
No, I do. Totally. Yeah, I've always felt it. I've always felt he's around my grandkids and my daughters, and they feel him too. So it's yeah, I always say to people, like, if your loved one, first of all, I don't think that we really die. I mean, I think our body dies, but I think we're very much alive. So
spirit.
Yeah, and the spirit is able to be wherever it wants to be. So why wouldn't it be with you?
Right. That's right.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to show, and actually, I don't know where this clip actually came from of Richard, but you might be able to recall. But I just wanted to show the audience.
The harder you look for what's going to bring meaning in your life, the less likely you are to find it. Because what we tend to do is we tend to think, okay, if I can get just one more achievement, if I can collect one more achievement, if I can get one more thing, if I get one thing that I want, I'm just going to be so happy and satisfied. And it just doesn't work that way. And proof of that, of course, is that you look back on all the things that you got in your life that you wanted, and we're going to give you all this meaning, and it never worked in the past. So it's kind of ludicrous to think that it's going to start happening with the next thing that you get that you want.
It just makes so much sense. I mean, really. And then when I was reading some of his quotes, things just started to click, a little bit. And even though you've heard these words maybe in the past or seen these statements, but I just wanted to read a couple of Richard's quotes.
Sure.
True happiness comes not when we get rid of all our problems, but when we change our relationship to them. When we see our problems as potential source of awakening, opportunities to practice and to learn. Duh. Like, I don't know. It just, makes so much sense.
Very common sense, really. But for some reason, we just get away from that, and I think what was beautiful about Richard's work and the way he taught was he just brought people back to really their values and what they really want, and some just common sense principles of, how to be happy. It makes sense.
And how life isn't perfect. It's not fair. And I think that's in one of his
it's not fair.
One of his no, it's not. No, but he says it, perhaps we need to think that it was never intended to be.
Exactly.
And
that's not a question of fairness.
It's so true, and then we have choices, and I think these awful experiences that happen to us, that's not our choice, but how we process and deal and move forward, is our responsibility,
Yeah.
you know. And I mean, there's so much help out there and people care. I'm sure, you know, when you were going through all of this, hopefully, well, I'm assuming that you had lots of support and people, you know, to help and surround you guys with love. And
I have some great friends, really great friends, and they were just incredible. Like you know, they were just so supportive.
That's good.
That's amazing. So what are you working on now?
Well, I've been helping other people write books.
Awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I work with my wonderful business partner, Deborah Evans, in a company that we've named Book Doulas. So that's one of the things. I lead a lot of women's retreats, both writing retreats and just health and wellness retreats. I have that program, What Now? I do a What Now retreat. After somebody buys the retreat, they get the course for free, or they can, if they've done the course, they can come on the retreat. But you have to do the first part of the course in order to come on the retreat. And and it's a personal development course, and it really has all the tools and the principles of happiness that we teach, and a lot more. I really dive into a course for women who have gone through a huge change and transition, and they're wondering who they are now. They're like, okay, I'm this new person, but what do I do now with this new person? So
that's so true. You do change and you become a different person, and you're not the same, and nor should you be.
Yeah, and I'm launching more courses right now. I've been I'm getting back on the speaking circuit, and it's just it's crazy because I have so many things I want to do, but like everyone, I get tired too. So
yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah.
I have to take time off too. So I'm in that kind of
self-care
mode. Yeah. I'm in that summer mode right now where I'm like, I don't feel like working too much, but I'm doing a lot of coaching, like writing coaching through Book Doulas, and that's been really fun. Deborah's just a brilliant partner, brilliant editor, and I just love working with her. So we do a lot of teaching. We have a book incubator program. If you ladies haven't written your book yet, you should come. It's really good.
Wow, Tina. There we go. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's really good, and you're well on your way. Doing a podcast is such a powerful way to develop relationship and build platform and create that relationship with people. So,
and your own personal growth. Totally. I can tell you 5 years ago, I would not have done this.
Yeah.
Not
way to
at
go,
all.
ladies.
Not a chance.
I know. Way to challenge yourself. Like it's always good to push yourself to the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes these experiences, get you there. And you can definitely push through it and get to the other side.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, I want to thank you so much, Kristine. Like, we're just so honored that you came to talk to us tonight. You're so lovely.
Wonderful.
You're so amazing.
Thank you.
Just so lovely. And also thank your assistant, Carol. She is super nice.
Oh, I know. She's great.
Yeah.
Great.
I know one thing I did want to ask you, speaking of assistants, is Richard, are you still working with Richard's little assistant?
No. And that was, that was a very fictional characterization.
Okay.
So that story was sort of somewhat early on in his career. There was somebody that was really had a lot of feelings for him, I think.
Right.
And I kept saying to him, hey, hey, this isn't right, but that was probably the most fictional part of the movie. They had to have a protagonist. So they asked me, was there ever anything? And I said, there was this woman. She really did write that tribute though. And that tribute really, really pissed my girls off.
Absolutely. Really it did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was real. So,
and I could see why.
Yeah, it really does
Yeah.
come off.
No, it's
And,
one of the
and
things.
it was upsetting to me too. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bad taste. Very bad taste.
Very bad taste. Yeah.
I mean, I think people just do things sometimes the best, the grief, loss brings out the best and the worst in people.
It does.
And, and you just, I mean, on hindsight now I'm like, whatever, but at the time it was pretty dramatic. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you're just incredible.
Thank you.
Honestly,
You ladies
just
too.
so
And
lovely.
congratulations
And
again on your
thank
podcast.
you so much. And thank
Congrats
you.
on the movie, and everybody needs to go watch it. It's a good movie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go see watch the movie, download the movie. It's fantastic. And it really gives you a look at the whole story and experience and that raw and like intro.
And don't forget to buy the books.
Right. Yes. So buy books. Actually, how many are there in the series now?
There's 9 Don't Sweat the Small Stuff titles.
Okay.
So yeah,
I wanted to ask that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. Yes. Buy the books. And so KristineCarlson.com is where people can go to get all kinds of information, books, your podcast, anything coming up.
Yep. And then I also have don'tsweat.com and bookdoulas.com.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Awesome.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, thank you
ladies.
so much.
Thank you.
Happy summer to you.
Take care. Yes, you as well.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome. Just love her. Like, just so thankful that she could come on with us tonight. So
I know.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It is.
And thank you everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.